Greetings YouTube. I wanted to post a video response to another one of Azric's videos that was posted recently talking about experience rewards for role-playing in your games. And this is a very deserving topic for discussion. It's a very important one, and it's something that not only game masters but players should be aware of as well in terms of understanding the repercussions of this particular concept within your games and at your table. And it's very interesting to really analyze what's going on when you talk about rewarding. Anytime you talk about rewarding one player specifically, it doesn't necessarily have to be experience points, but it's the most common example. And when you're talking about a role-playing game, we're talking about a game. We're talking about a collaborative social activity where a bunch of friends were getting together, hanging out, and just wanting to engage each other in a good time. And so naturally, anytime somebody adds or enhances the fun, contributes something, clearly is putting extra effort, getting extra invested into what's going on within the game, as a game master you absolutely want to reward that. Because it's just a general psychological concept that you want to reward good behavior and punish bad behavior. But the trick is, whenever you're handing out individual rewards to players, you set yourself up for perceived punishment. That because you're rewarding one person and one person only, or maybe this person and this person, anyone who's not explicitly being rewarded can kind of perceive that as punishment. That you're not necessarily saying out loud that you're punishing this player, but by not rewarding them, they might feel that it's basically the same thing. And this is not something you really want to introduce. You never want to introduce a concept of discrimination in your game, that somebody is kind of being picked on, or that you're saying, well, you're not good enough, you're not living up to the standard, therefore I'm not going to reward you like I'm rewarding Bob, Joe, and Mary. And so you got to be careful about that, because that can negatively impact the social kind of structure of the game. That can have people can take that in a bad way, even if you're not intending it to be so. And so you say, okay, well, you want to reward investment, fun, and role playing at your table, but you don't want to hand out these individual rewards. You don't want anybody to feel slighted. So how do you deal with this situation? One of the things I naturally kind of came into when I started to analyze this concept as a game master, when I started to look at the impact on my games, is that, and generally the way I hand out experience points for my games, I'm not going to go into too much depth, but maybe for a later video, but basically I reward just kind of like a blanket pool of experience points at the end of an adventure or a session or whatever it is, and I divide that experience reward equally amongst all players. There's no better shares one way or the other. It's just I take the pool, I divide it by the number of players, and everybody gets an equal share. And so what I started to do in those situations with role-playing rewards is that I would still reward that player in the sense that whenever I saw them engaging in the game and adding that extra level of fun, I would tack on extra experience points to the party's pool. And then again, just like all the other experience points at the end of the session, I would divide those equally. So that player is enhancing the experience for everybody by making the game more fun. They're throwing in extra experience points, and they're going to reap the benefits of that, and everybody else is also going to reap an equal share of those benefits. And what you end up with is kind of a snowballing effect when you introduce this concept. When players don't feel like they're in situations where they're being robbed by not contributing to that going to that extra level of effort. But rather, every time anybody contributes that extra level of effort, that everyone can see a tangible reward from that. And what ends up happening is that players start to realize that not only when they do cool things do they get rewards, but when other people do cool things, they also see rewards, and when they do cool things, they get to reward others as well. And so what happens is not only do they challenge themselves and bring themselves forward to engage the game more, to role play more, but they engage the other players, and they get them excited, they try to get them invested, they try to get them to role play more within the game. And then you just end up with a natural kind of social kind of banter that goes on with players wanting the other players to be cool. And that's something, if you're not experienced, excuse me, if you've not experienced, it's definitely worth experiencing in your games, or at least I suggest you try it out just to see the impact that it has. And it can be just a lot of fun to watch players feed that energy off of each other and realize that they're all in it together, that we're all in it to have a good time, and that, you know, the good time is what should be rewarded. And everybody who takes the time out of their day to come to your game and be a part of that good time should feel, you know, encouraged to be there to contribute, and feel like they're getting their, you know, they're getting a fair share, because, you know, this. You don't want to introduce the kind of experience point competition, because it doesn't have any positive impacts on your game, at least as far as I've experienced. And so you just want people to share equally. Now, it's not a new concept, and again, it was kind of one that I organically sort of started to devise for myself within my own role-playing experiences. But I've noticed that in a few games recently, it started to become game designers have started to recognize this concept and introduce them into the mechanics of their own games. Warhammer 3rd Edition actually has a similar concept. With fortune points, which are basically your action points or character points within the game. And players have individual fortune points that they can use, but there's also a communal pool for the party on the whole of fortune points. And the game master is encouraged to, whenever, you know, players do cool things or really role play or get into a scene, the game master is encouraged to reward the party pool with extra fortune points. And anytime whenever that pool rises to a certain level, everybody in the party gets one of those points. So again, every time somebody contributes something, they're tangibly rewarding the whole. The party as a whole, and so, you know, it just encourages people to get engaged like that. There's another game called that I just recently discovered called Old School Hack, which is kind of a symbiosis between, you know, Redbox D&D, kind of the old school style gaming, but also taking some newer kind of indie story gaming kind of concepts into it. And again, it uses a system called awesome points, and awesome points are basically the experience points. The cool thing about awesome points in Old School Hack is that not only does the game master hand out awesome points to other players, but other players can reward other players for cool things at the game, and they can give them awesome points. So anybody who recognizes something that enhances the game can reward somebody for that, and it's a great thing.